Dr. Hanbury and Alan Levan.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you all very much for the invitation, for having me here. The Research Park at FAU is actually a special district that was created by the County Commissions of Broward and Palm Beach back in 1985 for the specific purpose of building the research base in this region, primarily with FAU, and to foster economic development throughout Broward and Palm Beach counties. And the tools we were given initially were 70 acres of land that is owned by the state of Florida in Boca Raton, where we could recruit companies to be close to faculty members and the student body at FAU and bring new products and services to market through their collaborations. So what we have is the ability to create a virtuous cycle where a student can see the corporate world from his or her classroom and get an internship perhaps in the afternoon, walking over to a company, getting real world experience, while at the same time his or her professor is able to keep his or her skills current by working alongside those companies and have those companies work on projects within the same interest area, promoting research and development for the whole state, bringing research dollars primarily from the federal government here to South Florida, and translate those discoveries, those new ideas into products and services that will create long-term sustainable jobs. Throughout the process of doing that, we realized that we needed to create a pipeline. And so in the year 2000, we created an incubator for technology companies where we would mentor and support and nurture entrepreneurs as they took their ideas from paper to the real world, and really tried to take as much of the burden of running a company off their shoulders so that they could focus on building the technology and validating it, looking for customers, seeking out investors, and really making their companies viable. So we've been doing that for almost 19 years now, and we've really transitioned to working with companies that are a little bit more advanced. And the reason we've done that is because of the advent of FAU's Tech Runway initiative, which we started with the university about 4 years ago. And the idea behind that was to embed entrepreneurship in the life of the university, in the life of an undergraduate student as well as the faculty and graduate students. Tech Runway, which just had its launch competition yesterday, and I was judging the 20 or so companies that were pitching, the quality's improved every year of faculty companies, student companies, and community companies. And Tech Runway takes them now and helps them form a company, stand it up, and do those initial stages. Then we take the companies into the research park and help scale them by giving them really deep market insights that they probably wouldn't be able to afford by themselves, and help them seek out sustainable larger customers and bigger scale investments to make them sustainable, and then grow them into large companies like ones that you've seen, hopefully seen in the press, that have been very, very successful in the research park, like Modernizing Medicine and Mobile Health. Both of those companies started with us in 2012 with about 15 employees. They both graduated into the corporate world at the end of last year. Modernizing Medicine went from 15 people when they joined us to having more than 800 people today. Their most recent venture round was $231 million, and their valuation was about $500 million, so $500 million company. And they built that company using interns from FAU, PhD students from FAU, and really used the ability, the proximity, and the facilities of the university to scale that company and power it into the future. Similarly, Mobile Health had a trajectory that was very impressive as well. They were bought by a private equity company for an undisclosed sum. The important thing is that because they were embedded within a university and therefore this community, deeply involved in mentoring as well as getting technology into their own companies, they were able to make a case to their own boards and to their new investors that they needed to stay in South Florida if they were going to continue the success that they had already built. That there was no point moving them to Boston or elsewhere because it would be prohibitively expensive and the opportunity cost would be mind-blowing. So they need to stay in South Florida. That's our aim, is to make sure that these companies grow. We need more resources, we need more technology companies that are based here, working for all of us and really making this community richer and more vibrant and more diverse in its makeup.
Thank you, Andrew. That's a great start. I don't know if Dr. Hamber or Alan wants to lead for NSU. Alan?
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Andrew, for all that you do for the streets
the mic. Is the button on?
How about that?
No.
Hear me now? Okay. So following what Bob said at the beginning, what Dr. Hanbury and I are going to talk about, following also with what Andrew talked about, is why it's so important to develop technology here in Broward County and in the region. You know, the technology companies that are here because they disrupted somebody. They disrupted somebody's technology. And if they are not constantly innovating, somebody's going to disrupt them. So what does it take to disrupt? What does it take to be innovative? It takes best and brightest. We have to retain the students that are being educated here from going somewhere else. And we have to attract students and others to this region so that we can continue to grow. When Bob talks about economic development, the companies that he's trying to attract, he and the Alliance are trying to attract to Broward County and to the region, the question that is of most interest to these companies is what is the talent pool with which we can draw from in order to locate our companies. When you interview tech companies that are already here, what's the one issue they all have, and that is the talent pool. Where do they get new technology talent, and how do they retain the best talent? So Dr. Hanbury and I are going to go through a short slide presentation, and then I think we're going to just do a panel discussion and open it up for questions. So how do you
We have a computer guy now.
Okay, so it's on the left side. Thank you very much. So this is a building of the library at NSU. And you'll see the red box toward the right, which is the 5th floor of the library. This is where we're going to house the NSU Broward Innovation Center. But make no mistake about it, this is not the Innovation Center. This is just physical real estate. And the mistake that many innovation centers around the country make, and whether they're for-profit or not-for-profit, is they think the Innovation Center is the space with which they are located. But it requires far more than that. It requires the collaboration, it requires the outreach in order to make these successful. So when you think about, so George, so what are we doing here? Okay, push it again. There we go. Push on that. Okay. So what do you think about when you think about technology hubs? Where do you think technology hubs are in this country? So these are the top 10, and these are the ones that you would generally think about. San Francisco, San Jose, Seattle, New York, Boston, Austin, San Diego, Chicago. So that's pretty obvious. But what do you think about in terms of the next 25? So take a look at that. So what's interesting about this list is nowhere does Broward County appear on this list all the way up to the top 35 innovation centers in the country. And there's some names, there's some cities on this list that you would not think of as a technology place. So why is that? Why not Broward County? Well, we've got great companies here. You know, you look at Citrix and Builder and Hotwire, Magic Leap. We've got lots of great technology companies here. In addition to that, we have lots of attributes here in Broward County and in the region. we've got just an incredible, as Bob was talking about earlier and showed you that map, we've got an incredible abundance of technology and innovation activities and events here in South Florida and in Broward County. We have many events going on all the time. We have IT Palooza, which is really designed after Emerge in Miami. We've got population growth, we've got employment growth, and you just take a look at this list. And then, of course, you've got the last one on the list, which is the weather and the quality of life. So if you're in Bob's group and you're talking to companies and trying to attract them to South Florida, we've got everything that they could possibly want. But what they really need that we don't have is we don't have the talent pool. We don't have the technology pool. So let me give you some stats. So the Broward County statistics for STEM growth between 2013 and 17 was 19.9%. That's a pretty impressive number, almost 20%, until you realize that's a 5-year number. So annually, it's only 4% a year. That's pretty anemic for the vibrancy that we have here in Broward County. How about VC investments in this market? Within that same 5-year period, it was $2.4 billion. That is really an impressive number, except 1.9 billion of it was magic leasing. So that leaves only $100 million a year in Broward County for every other tech company that we have in this market. Well, here's a statistic that'll knock your socks off, is that in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area, we are first in the country for startup activity, based on the density of startups and entrepreneurs. Now that's really an impressive number. However, the rate of scale-ups, which is the next level up, is not high enough the region to even rank in the top 35. We're 36 out of 4 metro areas for startup. And so that's also pretty pathetic in terms of where we are. So to be clear, a startup is a company in the early stages of determining the product market fit, and a scale-up has already validated their product. So what's the problem here? If we've got all these startups, why aren't they getting to scale up? Why aren't they getting to the next level? So what's missing? Well, I would suggest that what's missing is a cohesive technology ecosystem. What's missing is a major doctoral research university leading the effort. What's missing is a local and national branding campaign. That's what Bob was talking about earlier, identifying Broward County as an up-and-coming technology hub. What's missing is that Broward County as a magnet for startups and accelerators and angel investors. What's missing is helping these startups become scale-ups with mentoring and business plans and government and understanding management and risk management. And we'll know that we have really been successful when for-profit and not-for-profits are popping up, innovation centers are popping up all over Broward County and all over the region. That's what will get us to be technology hub status. And of course, what's missing really is the vibrancy and the energy and the urgency to deal with this technology issue, and it's just incredibly important that we get designated as a technology hub in Broward County and in the South Florida region. So when you've got a region that has all these startups and all this technology and all these attributes, and you're not there, that's where new ideas need to be formed, and we need to figure out where to go. And that's Dr. Hanbury is going to discuss next, the innovation of the NSU Broward Innovation Center. So good luck with the city district.
Thank you, Alan. Ladies and gentlemen, this is indeed, I think, an opportunity for Broward County to be transformational in the area of not just Miami being the tech hub that Emerge said this morning is a tech hub. It's all of South Florida, just as Bob said. And when South Florida starts looking at itself as a region instead of 3 separate counties, and then within each county, 31, 32 independent cities that are the center of the universe, that's when we will be really branded and recognized. And that's, I hope, we get that message across today. Because it's not just NSU, and it's not just the Innovation Center. It is South Florida, all of South Florida, 6 million people recognizing that if we connect the dots enough, we can be far more than just a service industry for the hotel and tourists, but really be the technological hub for not only Florida, but for this country. We have all the attributes that would put any fine chef to envy to make a wonderful, wonderful meal. But we've never thought of ourselves as a region, as one. So, it seems interesting that a little over 30 years ago, when I had a lot of black hair, I was recruited to come from Virginia to be Fort Lauderdale city manager. And it was phenomenal, great opportunities, redevelopment, seeing Fort Lauderdale being developed, and attracting people to live and work, play downtown, and to really be a viable economic force, not only for the county, but for the state. Amazingly, after 30 years of being a city manager in 4 different cities, it doesn't seem possible. 22 years ago, Ray Ferraro invited me to come and stop my masochistic ways of nomadic city manager work and come to Nova Southeastern University. So I've been at the university now 22 years, and I've been honored and pleased to be its city manager, kind of feel like to say. Still working with a group of individuals as a board, but as its president the last 8 years. Interestingly enough, though, one of the first things that Ray asked me to do was to work with the county, and we have a public-private partnership. NSU does not have the largest of tax dollars as a state university system. We're private, not for profit. So we either rely on tuition or philanthropy or any kind of assistance. So we started in 21 years ago. We built what was then and still the largest library in the state, 325,000 square foot, state-of-the-art, high technology, video conferencing rooms, study rooms, 1,300, but we left 1 floor vacant. The county paid 50% and the university paid 50%. The county agreed that when we ever built out that 5th floor, they would pay their 50%, we would pay our 50% for books. Well, as you all know, universities in the world still needs books, but they don't need to be on bookshelves. Technology has changed everything, and our 5th floor has been vacant. But the county's obligation, after almost 21 years now, county's obligation is still there. We feel that the time has come. Nova Southeastern University is now ranked in the top 200 universities. It's our desire by 2025 we will be in the top 100 universities with 22,000 students, but only 80% graduate and professional, 20% undergrad. All other universities in Florida are about 80% undergrads and 20% graduate. Most of our students are in that innovative professional stage, and they want to be entrepreneurs or innovators, and we want to give that opportunity to them. When I was city manager, technology was in its infancy. Fort Lauderdale had the mainframe computer, and PCs were certainly not that available. Today, however, we have the capability for innovation to be the individual, as long as it still needs, however, a venue. And what we missed back then was to attract business, which was still my job as city manager, or just as Bob. We needed a venue for places where venture capitalists could come and hear pitches, where the desire to have a place that would allow startups and scale-ups to begin, but then to be interconnected with a doctoral research university where the faculty, the professors, the law faculty could help in patent developments, or the business faculty to help in a business plan, or students to rub elbows with potential entrepreneurs to develop that aspect. Now with HCA building a teaching research hospital on our campus, a hotel conference center being developed, the whole Center for Collaborative Research, which is part of our Cell Therapy Institute, our institution of the new MD program, the research we're doing in cancer research and development, the oceanographic program, all of those, if you connect those dots, we're doing research in major areas that helps to create innovation, but this innovation center will allow the venue to connect the dots throughout the county, whether it's the Fort Lauderdale Alliance, the county's small and minority business incubator program, FAU's program up in Palm Beach. Broward has an opportunity, instead of being, when I was city manager, the middle child between county, between Miami and Palm Beach, we have the opportunity to literally be the hub of 6 million people. Now,
Thank you, Alexa.
what I did is the most important part. All it takes is money. 3 simple words. The county has agreed to thank you.
Yeah.
The county has agreed.
President of the Technology Wizard.
Yeah, the county has agreed to put up $5 million. That's their estimated half. NSU would put up the other half. The business community. If the business community feels now is the time to have this venue that helps to coordinate all of the economic development efforts so that that actually has a face instead of an amorphous mass throughout the county, they need to put up $5 million, because the county has said for every dollar the business community raises, NSU and the county will put up $1. There's another $5 million that we need from philanthropy to be used as an endowment to sustain this innovation center so that it will go forward. So it's really a $20 million project. When you talk about innovation and what some counties or some states are spending on innovation, this $20 million is really a small amount. But for us, it's the beginning of something that I think we could see extremely successful. The annual operating budget's there and the potential revenue costs, all of this is in your brochure. But ladies and gentlemen, I think it's now our time, your time, to really see that this university or this county can see it's supported by business to attract and retain other businesses. Now, Alan is not only our chair, but he's also a successful entrepreneur, businessman, 2 businesses on the New York Stock Exchange. He and his wife have said they will put up the first $1 million from the business side. And that means we only need to raise $9 more million.
All right, so get your wallets out.
That's it. Bye.
Thank you, President Hanbury. So we've watched this country prosper as we matured from an agricultural-based economy, going through the Industrial Revolution, and most of us in this room have watched us transform to an information and IT-based economy. But as you've heard this morning, today we are in a full-blown innovation economy. And I think you've heard from around the room the importance of creating a reputation and a brand. David Armstrong's here, past president of Broward College, past chair of the Greater Florida Alliance, but now he's leading a new effort called TechLauderdale. So I think we've got, and that's a unique partnership for the South Florida Technology Alliance, the Broward Workshop, and other businesses and technology companies in Fort Lauderdale wanting to build the brand for Greater Fort Lauderdale. So it seems that we are at a unique point in time where all the powers that be, the influencers are gathering to begin to build this entrepreneurial network and this reputation for one. My first question for the panel is, I've talked to you, each of you individually, and you might expect that there would be a sense of competition, that we're going to pull opportunities from each other. But talking to you privately, you seem to really understand or emphasize the growth of the pie and building this entrepreneurial network. Can you talk a little bit about how you envision yourselves leveraging off one another from the research park to the Innovation Center?
Sure. I've always. Am I still on?
Share. There you go.
Yeah. So I've always been a strong proponent of regionalism and the fact that, as Dr. Hanbury said, with a region of 6-7 million people, there's plenty of opportunity to go around. The research park at FAU has always taken that position. As I said when I opened, this was created as a regional initiative. So we already work with Broward College, we work with Palm Beach State College, and as we see companies graduate from our different facilities, they've moved to Jupiter, some have moved to Hollywood, others to Fort Lauderdale. So we continue to service them and work with them. So seeing companies grow within the region is positive. If we're able to see a company start perhaps in an incubator at Nova Southeastern and it needs certain resources that FAU has, why wouldn't the 2 organizations, institutions work together to make that company successful and flourish and stay here so that it can employ graduates from both schools, come back and perhaps be a donor or work on new technologies. So it makes all the sense in the world to collaborate, not compete. There's different attributes that each institution has to offer. The locations are different and fairly far enough apart that they can be different, but close enough that it's easy to get from one to the other. So it doesn't really make any sense, in my mind, as the leader of the research park at FAU, to see an innovation center at Nova as a competition, as a competitor, just as I don't see the UM Life Sciences and Technology Park as competitors.
So Andrew, we totally agree. That's why I started this presentation by saying we're going to have 60,000 square feet of location, but that's not the success of the Innovation Center. It's the collaboration, and it's exactly what we're talking about. This requires not only the collaboration of universities and the regions, but the business communities in order to do that. Bob, let me give a statistic that I know you deal with all the time. When you look at the population of Florida and you compare that to the populations of New York, Texas, California, do you know that the other 3 states have about 50 Fortune 500 companies in those states, but Florida only has 18 Fortune 500 companies. So this is a systemic problem throughout the state of Florida of attracting, we have all the attributes here I mean, why would you want to live in New York as opposed to Florida? I mean, what would compel you to do that other than the business opportunity and the money that's there? And we just need to bring it south. We need to create that opportunity. So, let me turn it back to you, but collaboration is truly the name of the game.
I think, you've touched on it, that working together, we can really build a strong reputation for technology. If you think about South Florida, and especially greater Fort Lauderdale, in my mind, it's almost cradle to grave. When you look at the natural assets that we have in this community, Lori Salarillo's here with Junior Achievement. You may not realize this, but Broward County has the largest Junior Achievement facility in the country is in Broward County. Every 5th grader, every 8th grader in Broward County Public Schools goes through Junior Achievement programs. They have a competition called Spark Tank, where students come and actually develop their own companies and do pitches. So we're developing this amazing pipeline of talent. But as Alan touched on in his presentation, there's a huge gap between these startups and when these companies scale. We've got incredible natural resources when you look at the individuals who decide to retire and live here. Maybe we can tap into some of that, those retirees and people that have wealth that have some of these beautiful homes in South Florida, but dedicating some of that wealth to reinvest in local businesses. Yeah. How do you see that happening? And I'll start with Dr. Hanbury. Is there a way you think we can tap in, do a better job of tapping into some of these natural resources that Greater Fort Lauderdale has?
Absolutely. I think it's the recognition, and people don't see South Florida as a place or a venue that it can be a tech hub. They see us as the way we try to depict ourselves. Matter of fact, they see us the way we see ourselves, and that is we see ourselves as the sun fun place of America. And when you think of the sun fun place, you don't think of work. You think of pleasure. So, how do we think of ourselves? I was listening to Pitbull the other day, and he said he's playing the ugly dog, but he's also the cool dog. And what he's telling everybody, that great philosopher Pitbull, when you turn ugly around, ugly is you gotta love yourself. Now, do we really love ourselves and see ourselves as a place and a venue for tech transfer, innovation, and a technology hub? And that's where I think we have gone astray. We're not seeing ourselves as a place where Fortune 500 companies should come and locate. We're not seeing ourselves as a technology hub. And we have all of the ingredients of that, but we don't see ourselves because we see ourselves as a sun fun place for recreation. So I think we need to turn that around. And if you're looking for a new branding aspect, then start educating us to think of ourselves as that sector.
You want to add anything to that?
I agree completely. The only thing I would add is that to get that change and to have us start thinking of ourselves differently, we need you, we need the business community and the community at large to tell that message to policymakers. And it really comes down to leadership, both from a policy perspective, but also in higher education. If you look at any of the successful innovation districts around the country, research parks, and major centers of clustering of technology companies, there are two key leaders. One is the civic leader, the mayor of a region or a city and county, and the other is the president and the senior leadership of the university. If those two entities commit themselves both in time, energy, and resource, and bring others along with them, it can be successful. Without both of them, it's going to have a really, really hard time.
Great answers. Thank you very much. We talk about building out this network, and it's not a closed network at all. I mean, I think many of you saw that when David Armstrong announced his retirement, he also created a student venture program and he gave the lead gift that started that. For Broward College students that have an idea and a company they want to start, have the Broward College Innovation Center that they can go to. Under David's leadership, get not only mentorship and training from professors and other colleagues, but also have capital, access to capital that students wouldn't typically get. And I think we've got to, as we talk about building out this brand, and Dr. Hanbury, you were spot on. And what I'm really impressed with the work of the Convention and Visitors Bureau is, as we retire the Hello Sunny, because Dr. Hanbury could not be more accurate. People think outside of Florida that you come to Florida to retire or goof off. You don't really work down there, do y'all? You know, there's no reason for a company to be down there. We've got to change that brand, and that's why I'm really impressed with the sophistication of the brand that the Convention and Visitors Bureau is working on now. It really is about energy, energizing. You know, the beach is always going to be our hook, but then what else do you do in this community? What are your neighborhoods? Is it edgy? Are there cool things to do? And that's the path that the Convention and Visitors Bureau is going down, and I think that's a great branding opportunity for us. I'd like to open it up for questions. Anybody on the floor has got a question, please? Roy, please.
Bob, very briefly, this is going to be a story about George. When George first came to Broward, an occasion that evening was in the Keys, and that began this quest that he had. Panel, excellent. George, your dream came true. Congratulations. In regard to the observation, when we think of connecting the dots and coordination, it sounds like a oxymoron. But really, there are more dots to connect to what has already been enunciated. That's what I'd like to see. I really am so pleased we all made the effort, came and heard. Excellent program. Thank you.
Good morning. I sit on NOVA's Ambassadors Board, and I hear all of the impressive leadership and innovation that comes out of NOVA's, not only technology, but across the board. The big point is that it's true, when you said that Magic Leap holds such a big percentage of the technology in the county, I'm peripherally involved with Magic Leap, and I've been there, and it has the potential to be another Apple. And why are they here? Well, one of the reasons is because the CEO grew up in Hollywood, Florida. So I don't know if we really lured him here, but he's here in the old Motorola plant. And when you see the technology that's going to come out of Magic Leap, it's going to it's going to knock our socks off. But the fact is, that's the start of the mission. Because Magic Leap is here, I'm sure it's going to open the door for others to think, wow, I want to be around that leader. And so you're right on target with this mission, because I think it's going to continue. But again, it's going to be a lot of effort, because this happened randomly that Magic Leap is kind of here in a way, but the fact that they're here is really important. So the mission is so important, and you're doing an amazing job. So everyone here who's on this journey, keep it up.
Can I just add something to that? It may be that we didn't lure the CEO of the company to this region because he's from here, but it's still a success because we kept him here. He could have gone to the Silicon Valley. He did look out there, but his idea was so crazy and everything's so expensive there, and he would be a small fish in a big pond. It's more attractive to do it here, and so we were able to show him that he could be successful. And you're absolutely right. By having him here, we can create a halo effect around him.
I'm going to tie this in. Recently we had the NFL draft. It was held in Nashville, Tennessee. And everybody that was interviewed had the same comment. What do you think of this city? They are so proud of what they've done. We learned that 2 years ago. We also learned that from Austin, Texas. What do those two cities have in common? The people in Tennessee will tell you they're growing at 100 people every day. And everybody knows that. When do we get that enthusiasm? How do we get that enthusiasm for our area? I mean, we're still infected, pardon me, that's the wrong word, by Jets fans, Giants fans, people who moved here from New York, Yankees fans, because they still hang on to that. When do they buy into us? How do you do that?
I have a proposal to buy the Dolphins.
I'm in.
Good morning. I'm actually one of those New Yorkers, but I actually have bought into this, and I bought into it full 100%. The problem that I have, and this is amazing what we're talking about, the difficulty I see is someone who's come from New York, went to the New York school systems. What do we do? What are these innovation centers doing with the counties to work on developing students that we're not going to be in the bottom 10% of education here in Florida? I think that's a main problem, and a lot of reason why a lot of my New York friends won't come here, because their kids are behind in school. They have to put them in private school. There are some great schools here, but I think we're lagging significantly.
That's why, even though we're a private, not-for-profit, we do support the public schools, the community colleges, well, now the state college system. I think it's extremely important that even though we're a doctoral research university and we are developing students engaged in whether it's computer science, engineering, medicine, business, law, or education, we need the pre-K through 12, even though the university has a private pre-K through 12. We need public pre-K through 12, and we need those colleges, the state colleges, to help to build the foundations. It's wonderful to have the entrepreneur and the innovator, or even the top scientist and researcher, but you need the individuals who are trained, skilled workers who are providing that foundation, which are provided by the public schools and your state college system and your technological colleges that are in the county, so, or in all of South Florida. So you're right, and I think people underestimate what our public schools are doing. And that's something that, one, we're not really trying to learn what our public schools are doing. We're taking the assumption, and I'm afraid that assumption is wrong. And
Can I just make a comment a second? So those of you that don't know the new NSU, let me just spend 30 seconds educating you as to what NSU looks like today. Dr. Hanbury said NSU is in the top 200 schools in the country. What you may not know is that we are the youngest school in the top 200. So where we're going, we just completed a $500 million capital campaign of $300 million in research and $250 million in philanthropic support. We're a Carnegie Research designated institution. The accolades for NSU go on and on and on. And so we talk about pride of community. NSU and the NSU Broward Innovation Center and the things that we're doing, we're the largest private employer in Broward County. So we talk about being proud of our community. NSU can really be the catalyst for that kind of pride. We've never been known as a university town. NSU, many people remember NSU years ago when it was still trying to keep the lights on. But in 55 years, this institution is just a powerhouse in this community. And as George said, our aim is over the next 6 years to be in the top 100 universities in this country. So that could be the catalyst we're looking for.
Bridget.
Thank you, panel, for your leadership here. If you take a look at the regions that Alan cited, and take a look at why they're successful, it's about growing the pie. It's not slicing it up, as you had mentioned earlier. Okay? And if you take a look at the ingredients, the people, the technology, and the capital that you need, and you take a look at the recipe, if you will, which is the ecosystem and all the elements in the ecosystem with industry, government, and academia, those successful regions have that all set and have done well with it. But the real key to it is having the chefs, okay, that can actually make it happen. Not just the leadership. I believe you have the leadership in place to do this, but the chefs at the operating role to really work together with industry, government, and academia to make it happen. Do we have the chefs in place?
I believe we do. We just need to coordinate them. Everybody's busy in their own vertical, in their own silo, and the community pride, community effort, these community initiatives have the ability to really to come together. When you take NSU, when we announced a plan in 2011 to raise $500 million, do you know what response we initially got from the community? Like, what? 500? What are you guys, crazy? That's an audacious goal. You're never going to do it. Nobody has ever raised that kind of money in Broward County. And guess what? 8 years later, we're at $500 million and oversubscribed as well. So it's here. The core is here. We just need to pull it together. And we're talking the Alliance and government and the universities, NSU and Broward College and FAU and the others. I mean, it is a power that it's a force that's going to be terrific here. We're at a point where the time has come, and we're delighted for the opportunity to address this group and others to be able to spread that message, and hopefully you'll walk away and say, I really think they can do this. And by the way, one last thing, George, you can't help George when he's in front of a group, he's raising money. So we don't need to raise $20 million to open this innovation center. We'll be open before the end of the year. So, with all due respect, we don't have a plate out. We will raise money, and we will be. We're not looking 5 years down the road. We will be open for business in 6 months.
So I just
We have one last question. This will be the last one to respect your time. I do call Andrew the Emerald Lagasse of South Florida. So remember that.
So we do have I just want to mention to Paul and Dr. Hanbury's points, yes, I agree with you. Our school systems, you look at our stats, academically, our students are doing better, our graduation rates are higher, there's so many good things going on. But I also, for those of you that don't know, and thank you, Bob, for the call out, every single Broward County student goes through entrepreneurial education from the time they're in kindergarten. We have 5th and 8th graders, every single one of them goes. Why? Because Broward County Public Schools, one of the few in the country, has said, we can't teach that education in a building like JA, but we will partner. And they did that 10 years ago. So for the last 10 years, every single one of our children have gone through education, entrepreneurial education. Our high school students, there's about 1,000. And so I think I'm so happy to hear about the partnership. I certainly want to make sure that we are a part of that. But to everybody here, I'm going to leave us with a call to action. If we want this to work, these kids, they're homegrown. We start when they're young. So if you want to see that work, then we need to get involved, every single one of us. Because every one of these programs relies on mentors. And that's the people in this room. So I'm going to leave us with a call to action for everyone to get involved early on so that we can make sure by the time they get to the Innovation Center, they're prepared.
Well said.
And Laura, who was the first storefront in Junior Achievement?
Well, the mic's not dead, so thank you very much, Alan, and great panelists. Thank you all for being here this morning. You've got to be good storytellers. The people in this room, it has to start with you. Lori gave you the call to action. You know, you've heard a lot that's gone on this morning. You know, Darren made a great comment about Magically. You know, local, homegrown entrepreneur that wants to stay here. But when Google invested in that company, they told him, you can't stay in South Florida. We had to make the case when Google was investing significant venture capital dollars and Magically, you could do it here. And they gave Roni Abovitz a timeline and said, you've got a year to build out your team, but if you can't do it here, we're moving you guys to California. They have 1,000 employees on a plantation now. I mean, they are going to be ground zero for something you're going to be hearing more about called spatial computing. Think about that. We could be, Broward County could be leading the world in spatial computing with a company like Magic Leap. We were out there not too long ago. Vinny Viola with the Panthers bought 25 of the Magic Leap headsets.
Yep.
Magic Leap donated 5 more to give to Broward County Public Schools because he was so impressed with their technology. So that's the kind of give back we've got companies like Magic Leap doing in our community to make our public schools that much stronger. We have such a great working relationship with Broward County Public Schools. Thank you for the time this morning. I'll turn it back over to our president, Rick Alter.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, George, and Alan, and Andrew for being on the panel today. You know, entrepreneurial innovation is really going to be the key. I've traveled the country. I've seen it. I've been to all those hubs. I think we have to be careful of competition within the state. We can't lose sight of the I-4 corridor and resources that are being put there as well. And so while regionalism is good, we have to keep regionalism local. So I think we have to pay some attention to what's happening up there. You know, there's big pushes in all these industries, and we've got to keep up. Even things that I know I've talked to George about, the concept of esports. Esports is a $1 billion a year industry, and it's moving to Orlando. We've got to capture it back here. So thank you all for coming. Be at our next meeting in June, and see you then. Thank you.